At the dinner, everyone was having a great time chatting away. I stayed quiet, sipping my soup, just listening to them talking about things I couldn't really join in on. They were speaking in French, discussing Carrie and Ken's wedding plans. Right in front of me, his actual girlfriend. I looked up at Ken. He just smiled politely. He didn't say anything to correct them. To fit in with Ken's crowd, I've secretly learned 4 different languages. But I've always felt like the odd one out. They're all PhDs who studied abroad. And me with my associate degree? Yeah, they looked down on me for sure. I left the table and called my brother. I'm open to those arranged dates you mentioned. After the call, I flew straight back to City A that same night. It was 2 a.m. and Ken still wasn't home. A news alert popped up on my phone. It said a well-known entrepreneur John had passed, leaving half his fortune to charity. People online were mourning his loss. I teared up thinking of the last time I saw my dad. I got to the hospital too late. Dad had a bad heart, but kept it a secret. My brother blamed himself for not seeing him off. He regrets not seeing you start a family. I hung my head, drowning in guilt. Lily, I know it's tough, but this is our family's legacy. Dad always thought you had the most potential. It's a pity you moved away, but now it's up to you. Think about it, Lily. Dad had 2 wishes. For me to take over and to see me settled down. I begged Ken to come with me, to give Dad peace. Ken, just this once, can you? But he threw on a coat and stormed out. Lily, don't overdo it. Carrie's drunk somewhere out there. It's freezing, and she's not safe alone. He shut the door on me. But Carrie had David, Ken's longtime buddy, with her. That night, I saw David's social media post. It was about love that stands the test of time. I'm so jealous, he wrote. I couldn't kid myself anymore. My hope was gone. I booked a flight the next day and started packing. Ken came home, wearing his usual black coat, looking as sophisticated as ever. Back already? He said, squinting at me. Just sorting some stuff out to ship back, I said, making up an excuse. He nodded, get some rest, it's late. He didn't pry, and I stayed unusually quiet. It seemed to unsettle him. Then the phone rang. It's Carrie, sobbing on the other end. Ken, could you come over? I'm struggling here. He comforted her over the phone with a softness I've never heard. Carrie's got depression. She's drunk, you know how these things go. I should keep an eye on her, he explained, but I cut him off, I know. Ken paused, his sleeve covering a scar on his wrist. How could I forget? I was there for him through his depression. Didn't you say you wanted me to go home with you? When things settle down, I should have some free time, Ken offered. His words felt wrong somehow, like a scramble to keep things normal. And I planned to tell my friends about you. I nodded, waiting for his grand announcement that seemed to come so late. It was time for this chapter to end. Lily, why are you dressed like that? Ken asked. Is there a problem? I shot back calmly. No, it suits you. He looked puzzled, amused to me in something other than black, white or gray, simple, elegant, the way he liked it. Today, I chose a bright yellow cheapao, hair-pinned with a white jade clip. I've always loved cheerful colors. Ken seemed remorseful, probably having spent all night with Carrie. That color looks great on you. We'll get more like it when we get back. Sure, I replied, distracted. There was a change though. Something felt different, like silence had settled between us. Meeting at the restaurant, Carrie and her friends were already waiting, laughing and chatting animatedly. Their conversation roamed from academic theories to emotions, to how Ken felt about Carrie. Ken waited so long for you, Carrie. You both were always our golden couple, teased David. Ken's real match was always you, Carrie added. Ken's got a girlfriend already, I said, but felt overshadowed by the group's dynamic. It doesn't matter. We all know Ken's heart is still with you, Carrie. His current girl is just a stand-in. David wasn't shy with his words. I watched as Ken stood there, part of their world but not mine. You won't believe it until you see it later. But Lily looks like a knockoff version of Carrie. She's copying Carrie's style and hobbies. It's like she's trying so hard but just can't cut it. But when I walked in, everyone kind of stopped breathing. The girl in front of me had a calm and radiant vibe, totally different from Carrie's elegant and noble style. It got a bit awkward. So, I just smiled and greeted everyone casually. Someone whispered, "It's not quite the same, is it?" Then Carrie saw Ken, and walked up to him with a smile. Ken, congrats on winning the top award again. Aren't you going to tell us about your work? She just ignored me and was all friendly with Ken, chatting and laughing with the group. Ken smiled and talked about the inspiration behind his paintings and his experiences over the years. Carrie kept up with him effortlessly, like they were perfectly in sync. A match made in heaven, right? Then David, out of nowhere, asked in French, "So, when are you two getting married?" Everyone looked at me and started chatting in French like they all knew something. Carrie responded to their blessings in French too. I glanced at Ken, but he didn't deny anything. I sighed and left the room. David looked at me with a hint of disdain. To him, there was no way a college student like me could understand French. What Ken and the others didn't know is that I've taught myself 4 languages over the years, just to be part of Ken's world. Basic conversations weren't hard for me. Listening to the laughter in the room, I dialed the phone. "Brother, I'm willing to come back and take over Dad's legacy." "Lily, it's great to hear that. Mom and I have always hoped you'd come back. You've always been Dad's pride. No matter what, we want you to be happy." My brother's voice was filled with joy. Finally, it seemed like his little sister had figured things out. "But I need a month to wrap things up here. Is your boyfriend coming back with you?" He sensed something was off and asked suddenly. Hearing him mention Ken, I felt a moment of weakness. "Brother, I'm planning to break up with him. Dad's business, I'll make sure it thrives. I won't let it fall in our generation." Felix sighed on the other end. "Lily, after so long, he still didn't come home with you. He even missed the chance to see Dad one last time. A man like that isn't worth it. I'll help you find someone better next time. If you ever feel wronged, come home. You'll always be our child." "Thanks, bro." I held back tears, knowing my family was my safe haven. Ken noticed my empty seat. For some reason, he felt uneasy. Lily wasn't around to cling or bother him anymore since she got back from home. Her calmness, her maturity, somehow made him more anxious than her usual antics. Feeling restless, Ken drank one glass after another. When I returned to the room, he was already drunk. I tried to help him, but Ken shoved me away. "I don't want to go home." "Carrie, why did you leave me?" "Carrie, don't go." Everyone awkwardly turned their heads away, not sure how to react. Ken, looking abandoned, had tears in his eyes. Carrie looked at me with a triumphant smile. Feigning an apologetic and troubled look, Carrie said, "Ken's like this, I'm afraid. I'll leave him to you then." Graciously, I handed Ken over to her. "Lily, are you even a woman?" David glared at me, anger in his eyes. My indifference towards his buddy seemed to annoy him. "Isn't that what good friends like you are for?" I calmly watched Ken clinging to Carrie and walked away without hesitation. I returned home and started packing. Everything related to Ken and me in this house was quickly cleaned out. After hesitating for a while, I opened the art studio. The room was filled with numerous sketches of backs that I had copied. I sighed, sitting in front of the easel, and found the original sketches marked by time. This sketch was something I hurriedly drew when Ken and I first met. I accidentally left it behind, and later he picked it up, which became his source of inspiration. I added the final touches, bringing color to the unfinished picture from back then. Ken didn't come back all night. I didn't call him again, and instead went to the studio alone. "Lily, are you really leaving us?" My colleagues gathered around me reluctantly. I built this design studio from scratch, and now that it's finally doing well, I'm leaving. You all can stand on your own now. Don't waste what I've left behind. "You brat, just leaving like that, you're ruthless." Molly scolded me, but her eyes showed genuine concern. She knew how much her best friend had put into this love story. When the once genius artist Ken got caught up in a plagiarism scandal and lost his muse, I was there helping him come out of the darkness, staying by his side without fail. Ken developed depression, and I stuck with him, not leaving his side to protect him from doing anything foolish. I worked hard to clear Ken's name, pouring time and money into finding the truth. I paved opportunities for him over and over. To protect his pride, I secretly bought Ken's paintings under another name, Wendy, and used their elements in fashion design. That's how I helped him regain his self-confidence. Did you know? At a launch, we introduced the latest collection of dresses. The most significant one was the wedding dress designed by the rising star Carrie. In the industry, apart from Wendy, Carrie's designs were the most distinctive. Rumor has it that the patterns on the dress were hand-drawn by the genius artist Ken. This is so romantic, a love that goes both ways. But didn't they break up a while back? Ken has a girlfriend now. Couldn't they just get back together? They're such a great match. So what if he has a girlfriend? Love is for the brave. Besides, Carrie and Ken knew each other first. Love is about being equal. That girl from the trade school is not even deserving. Love should be uplifting. That trade school girl would just drag Carrie down like a parasite. The chatter of the girls flipping through fashion magazines reached us, laughing as they did. Molly's face turned pale. What kind of twisted logic is that? Don't mind it. I stopped her from engaging in the argument and shook my head. Molly was still a bit upset as we left the cafe. I sighed and said, I don't want to be part of this relationship anymore. But you've done so much for him, taken 99 steps towards him. Are you really giving up, Lily? As my best friend, Molly knew exactly how I felt. I nodded, my eyes showing determination. I don't want to wait for him anymore. If Ken isn't willing to take that step, no point in me walking to him while he heads towards someone else. If you're on the wrong path, you should change direction in time. If one day you're standing side by side with Ken, or even above him, and he regrets it and comes running back to you, will you turn back? I shook my head. People shouldn't stand still. As I was gathering my things, an unexpected guest showed up at my apartment door. It was Ken's sister, Lucy. Lucy's eyes carried a deep disdain as she looked at me. I'm not going to come in and sit. I came here to let you know that the only daughter-in-law our family recognizes is Carrie. You know, Ken and you are different, your minds don't quite sync. For generations, we've devoted our lives to our ideals. Lily, you shouldn't force your way into a circle you don't fit into. I looked at Lucy, whose words were sharp with a half smile. Oh really? But why did Carrie insist on leaving him back then? Was it because there was no deeper connection with Ken? Anyway, I hope we can save face for each other. My brother is confused. I hope you're sensible enough to realize when to step back. Okay, I have an academic discussion on ancient culture rituals I won't prattle on. With that, she turned gracefully and left. I gazed at Lucy's departing figure, a hint of sarcasm in my eyes. Back when Ken was dealing with depression, it was Lucy who earnestly told me, Ken is fragile right now. Lily, I trust you with him. But now Lucy wants me to save some face. When Ken got home that night, I noticed he changed his clothes. I recognized it, a couple's outfit designed by Carrie. Ken noticed my gaze, explaining, I threw up on my clothes and Carrie's place only had this menswear. Don't worry, nothing happened. David was there too. I smiled. David was actually the biggest fan of the idea of Carrie and Ken as a couple. Ken nervously raised a cake. Tomorrow is our anniversary. I got the mango cake you love. I stared at the melted cake, a bit stunned. Sorry, it melted a bit. Ken looked a bit annoyed. He'd forgotten to put the cake in the fridge while taking medicine to Carrie. No worries, we can still make a wish. But I shook my head. Ken, I'm allergic to mangoes, remember? Plus it's ruined. Let's just toss it. Get some rest. Ken watched me walk away, feeling suddenly nervous. He seemed to make up his mind and grabbed my hand. Lily, would you come home with me tomorrow? Meet my family officially? I wanted to tell Ken about my plans to leave. What's up with this brother and sister duo? Thinking of Lucy's earlier aggressive behavior, I decided to just lay everything out there. Better to be clear than misunderstood. Lily, you seem a bit different lately, Ken said, watching me from the car, his eyes carrying an unclear emotion. I didn't respond, just watched the scenery outside the window. His family, a renowned literary family, was overflowing with a scholarly air. I heard Ken was bringing his girlfriend home, so Auntie invited me to have a look too. I hope you're not unwelcome? Carrie's smile charmed everyone, making the lady of the house beam. Why would you be? We're all family. Lucy looked at me with a meaningful expression. They were the family, and I was the outsider. Inside, Carrie was the center of attention, engaging everyone in conversations I couldn't join. She dazzled with her knowledge and references, earning praise from the elders. I quietly drank tea, an invisible presence on the side. Carrie, why don't you take Lily out to the garden? Suggested the hostess, her eyes showing disdain towards me. Clearly, I was being sent away. I took the hint and stepped outside. Lily, let's talk, Carrie said. We're all grateful for what you've done for Ken. But you can see, I'm the favored daughter-in-law. A family of intellectuals values connections that match. Lily is a smart person. You know how to choose to your benefit. I looked at her, sarcasm in my eyes. Connections? Do you make choices for Ken without considering his opinion? No matter how many times he got to choose, it'd be the same. Haven't you seen that, Lily? Carrie asked, her smile knowing. I could help send you overseas for some refinement, help you blend into this circle. Then you'd also find love within the circle. Carrie's eyes looked down on me, filled with pity. I don't need it. Lily, is it necessary? If so, I'll have to find another way to make you give up completely. Carrie had a slight smile in her eyes. I ignored him and turned away. The family dinner ended in a bad note. On the way back, Ken looked a bit tired. Just as I was about to bring up breaking up, Lucy abruptly called. Ken, you need to come back. Carrie's in a really bad state. At the same time, Carrie sent Ken a photo. She wore the wedding dress she designed, sitting on a skyscraper rooftop. The wind blew her dress, her expression was sorrowful. Ken, I'll marry you in the next life. I watched Ken run toward the skyscraper without hesitation, tears falling in the wind. I turned and walked the opposite direction. Back home, I packed my things. A new message notification popped up. A legendary love between a genius painter and a fashion rising star. In the photo, Carrie and Ken were in a deep embrace. Marketing accounts kept pushing it, probably Lucy's doing. I sighed and rescheduled my flight to the next night at 10. Near midnight, Ken finally stumbled back home. The smell of alcohol was overwhelming. I dampened a towel and gently wiped his face. Ken grabbed her hand, holding her close. Lily, Carrie has depression. I was just comforting her, don't overthink it. Yeah, I know. Back when Ken was seriously depressed from plagiarism accusations, I was there with him, bringing him out of that darkness. He once cut his wrists in the bathroom, and I ran through the rain to his apartment, kicked down the door, saw his bloody hands, gritted my teeth and carried him to the hospital. I felt a bit detached, wanting to push him away, but he held on tighter. Then I noticed a ring on my hand. Lily, it's an anniversary gift. I looked at the ill-fitting ring, a bitter smile on my lips. The ring was too big, not my size. Compared to the showy, romantic proposal on a skyscraper, his love for me was just drunken mumbling. Lily, let's get engaged after this competition, okay? It's almost the end of the year. Let's have a reunion meal with both our families. Didn't you say your dad really wants to meet me? What kind of gift would impress him? Lily, why are you crying? Ken was flustered. He had never seen me cry before. He was at a loss. I had mentioned bringing him home many times, but Ken always used work as an excuse and refused. That reunion dinner would never happen. I wiped away my tears and quickly calmed myself. Ken noticed my shaking and thought it was relief turning to joy. He gently patted my back, comforting me, don't cry. When Carrie confronted him earlier, it was Lily that flashed in her mind. Once Carrie's condition stabilized, he'd marry Lily. It's late, get some sleep. I turned to go back to the bedroom. Lily, let's celebrate the anniversary tomorrow at home. No going out. Ken was a bit panicked, grabbing my hand. I nodded, let's have a talk tomorrow. The next day, I made a full meal. But when I opened Ken's room, it was empty. Lily, I'm taking Carrie for a follow-up at the hospital. I'll be back to eat with you tonight. I waited at the table, reheating the dishes until 8 p.m., but Ken still didn't return. A bitter smile spread across my lips. I had to go. In the last minutes of waiting at the airport, I tried calling Ken. His phone was off. I opened my phone. Lucy had updated her status. There were Carrie, Ken, and his parents, enjoying a reunion meal together. She captioned it, our family's newest member. I gave it a thumbs up, then found Ken's profile on WeChat. Typing, we're over. I wish you and Carrie the best. I left the ring on the table. Ken, this time, I'm not waiting for you. I finished and blocked him, tossing my phone into an airport trash can. As soon as I got off the plane, I saw my brother waiting at arrivals. Did you sort everything out? Felix asked softly. I nodded. Lily, whatever happens, welcome home. I returned home with my brother, my mom's eyes welling with tears when she saw me. I'm glad you're back. Meanwhile, Ken frowned. He had finally explained things to Carrie, brought her home, and calmed her down. It was already late. He told Lucy to take care of Carrie and hurried off. All he could think was that Lily was still waiting for him at home. He reached for his phone to call her, but realized it was off. A deep unease washed over him. He felt like he had lost something important. Lily would surely wait, she always did. Every time he came home late, she'd quietly sit on the sofa, waiting till he returned before resting. Ken tried to reassure himself. But when he got home, he found only cold dishes. He rushed to Lily's room, finding it empty. Ken quickly charged his phone and read Lily's message. "Where are you?" His message was sent, but only a red exclamation mark appeared in return. Lily had blocked him, and Ken finally panicked. He dialed Lily's number repeatedly, but it was always off. He finally understood the source of his recent unease. Lily had become more understanding simply because she stopped caring. Since she came back, everything changed. What happened? They were about to get married. Lily had done so much for him. Why would she leave him? No, once the competition was over, they'd marry immediately. Lily would definitely wait for him. But I really have no time for Ken. There's so much stuff piling up at home, it's driving me nuts. Felix took over the family business after Dad passed, and he's had a hard time keeping up. Lily, you don't have to push yourself so hard, Felix said with a hint of concern in his eyes as he looked at his sister. Bro, set up a meeting with Nolan for me tomorrow. We can't go on like this. The cafe had lots of trendy magazines, and Nolan casually picked one up. It was the latest fashion weekly. Lily, blending the traditional with the modern is a big task, Nolan remarked offhandedly as he opened the magazine. The first piece was about this genius painter Ken's contest entry. His latest work was a portrait of a woman's back, an elegant silhouette in a pale yellow cheapao. Another piece showed the back of a young boy, marked by the passage of time, which stirred quite a bit of controversy. Just then, the TV broadcast live footage of an award ceremony. Carrie, is the figure in the painting based on you? It looks just like Ken's newest work. I declare these two paintings as national treasures. Did you paint the other one? Carrie smiled gracefully beside me, admitting, while I looked at Ken in the camera. Surprisingly, he didn't deny it. Claiming someone else's work is the worst thing you can do in the art world. Yet Ken did it for Carrie. I couldn't help but let out a bitter smile. I really like Lily's sketches, he continued. But as a latecomer in the field, Lily, I think it's a bit risky. Though risk and opportunity go hand in hand. I believe in you. Let's have a successful partnership. Our family brand has always been in an okay spot in the fashion industry. Dad worked really hard for it. Initially, I collaborated with Molly under Wendy's name, planning to return after marrying Ken. I haven't forgotten Dad's wishes. For Ken, I gave up the design school and moved to his city to study business. Just as I was about to leave, a major shocker appeared on the cafe's TV screen. Ken didn't win the contest. The winner was another painting, signed by Wendy. At the award ceremony, Molly waved her hands. Lily, I know you're watching. What do you think? Excited? Beside her, Molly looked up, pleading silently at Nolan. Bro, help me, she mouthed, eager to speak. Nolan turned his head, ignoring her plea. What's up? I calmly said, watching her. Lily, I didn't want your hard work to go unnoticed. I entered the contest with what you left behind. Carrie is trying to steal your spotlight. Molly looked furious. Now the internet is going wild. People are realizing Wendy's and Carrie's works look strikingly similar. And she's being exposed. Dig a bit, and you find out Carrie's entire shady past was revealed. Back then, she's the one who made Ken plagiarize. She sold Ken's painting to fund her study abroad. Now she's famous, and the intermediary is squeezing her for money. Guess they couldn't settle. Don't be mad. I heard you needed a collaborator, so I brought my brother here with sincerity. We can't let go of our studio. And besides, your talent outmatches both of them combined. Molly doesn't think it's fair what I've gone through all these years. Warmth filled me. You little rascal. 3 days later there's going to be an auction in City A, where the contest winner has to create a piece, part of it going to charity. What are you planning to paint? I smiled, looking at the two national treasures. These will do. At the auction I spotted Ken. Carrie wasn't by his side this time. Lily, you're actually Wendy. I always kept that sketch of yours. Been searching for you since. He had picked up the sketch I left behind, fueling his inspiration. Recalling that fleeting glance from years ago, I realized he wasn't the same boy anymore. The French host came over to greet me, and I responded with a polite smile. Lily. Ken seemed surprised, then remembered something. I'm sorry. Let's go, Nolan said, stepping in with a grin, raising an eyebrow at Ken. Lily, who's he? Nolan simply extended his arm, leaving the question unanswered. I took his arm gracefully. Why don't you worry about your fiancé instead? The auction featured more than paintings, there were antiques too. For some reason, everything I liked Ken bid against me. Not bidding anymore? Nolan asked playfully, glancing at me. We should really consider costs. You can't just throw money around. Nolan chuckled, raising his paddle. Ken looked slightly annoyed as a Song Dynasty vase spiraled into a bidding war, skyrocketing tenfold before Nolan clinched it. Sir, are you just buying it as a pretty vase? Ken asked Nolan sarcastically. Don't you think it'll collect dust if you don't fully grasp its beauty? Value, Ken said, isn't it bestowed by people? Money is the clearest way to show that value. If I can outbid and buy it 100 times over, it's a treasure to me. Nolan responded pointedly. Just like if Wendy hadn't styled your work into fashion, you would be an unknown artist. You're ruining art, Ken exclaimed. Nolan ignored him as the auction proceeded to my work. Ken held his breath. The painting was another back view, but the person in the picture was no longer him. Nolan gave a sly smile, quieting the room with a gesture. Ken clenched the auction paddle tightly. He didn't even get a chance to bid. Nolan's gesture meant he'd match any price. No matter the cost, he'd outbid. Ken looked pale, a hint of unwillingness flitting across his eyes. He just didn't have the means to compete with Nolan. Even if he sold everything he owned, it wouldn't amount to much compared to Nolan. The auction ended, and I got ready to head back to the studio with Nolan. The pattern on that vase would be perfect for the theme of the next clothing line. Nolan's jewelry, and my clothes could both draw from that idea. Go ahead and do it your way. Thanks for picking up the tab, Nolan. I smiled at him. I love the painting you did for me, Nolan whispered quietly in my ear. When I got home, I saw a familiar figure at the door. Lily. Ken looked at me with slight affection in his eyes. What are you doing here? I looked at him, my eyes cold. I told you after this competition we'd get married. Ken's gaze was filled with determination. What about Carrie? I've said it before, Carrie and I are just friends. She's just a patient. I always thought of her as a sister. Ken, I plan to take over the family business. We're not on the same path. Carrie would fit right into your circle. Please don't look for me anymore. Lily, are you leaving me? Ken suddenly hugged me from behind, wrapping his arms around my waist. I quietly broke free. Ken, please, no pulling and tugging. I'm already engaged to someone else. You're lying. That's impossible. You'd wait for me. Lily. My brother's voice called out as he saw Ken, with a trace of hostility. This is Ken, right? I've heard about you from Lily. Come on in if you'd like. Ken looked a bit pleased at that. I sighed and didn't stop him. I told my brother all about my experiences over the years. Knowing his character pays back tenfold. I understood what he meant. But when Ken saw Nolan in the house, he looked even paler. Nolan and my mom chatted about something, and she was all smiles. Hi, ma'am. I'm Ken. My mom looked at him kindly, signaling for him to sit down. Ma'am, I came here to. But my mom cut him off. Lily, Nolan's family, and ours had an arranged marriage for you too. Now that you're home and have met Nolan, I won't need to set up a date for you guys. Ma'am, aren't you gonna ask Lily what she wants? Ken said passionately, looking at me. Nolan glanced at me too. Of course I'm willing. Ken left, though I have no idea how he managed to walk out. Nolan stared at me with a bit of hesitation in his eyes. I knew you were just mad when you said that. He watched Ken leave. For some reason, the sympathy he should have felt turned a bit cold. He had looked into Ken's past, and everything Ken had done was quite chilling. I shook my head at him. I wasn't just mad. Otherwise, I wouldn't have painted that for you. Ken was right. Marriage is often decided by parents. We are well suited. I placed a ring in his palm, smiling as I slid it on his finger. My family is in fashion. Measuring by eye is a basic skill. Nolan blinked and pulled another ring from his pocket. Yours matches perfectly. The rings were just the right size, a perfect pair. Molly, that girl. Nolan exclaimed, surprise flickering in his eyes. We exchanged amused glances. Ken exposed Carrie's plagiarism, not just of Lily's painting, but her entire portfolio. Her designs were all stolen. Her startup money came from selling someone else's sketches. After harming herself, she left the country. While abroad, Ken found out Carrie's supposed talent was all based on deception. Even her sketches were someone else's. Thinking of the pain of being falsely accused of copying, he was shocked to have favored her. Carrie, who was outed, became a disgrace and went into hiding. She waited for the right moment to stab the man in the hand repeatedly with a concealed knife. Carrie was arrested, and Ken went to the hospital. His tendons were so damaged he couldn't draw anymore. Ken shut himself off, spending time in the yard, staring at a yellowed picture. It showed her back. Lucy watched her brother, eyes filled with regret. Their mistake had cost him happiness, but it was too late to fix it. My wedding made the news. Nolan and I were the perfect couple, compatible in every way. Some things once missed can never be recaptured. Ken watched the horizon as the sun set. His sun had set too. The end.